Hey, what's up? Video request time. Really high. I just had my category 1 narcotic. Oh, yeah, boy. Okay. Fuck the Nazis, by the way. Okay. So, can you do a video expressing your opinion about feminism? Do you think it was the right step for society or a misguided attempt to correct gender inequality? Okay, so this is I think I'll make this video Feminism Sexism because a couple of years ago I got a request from this chick to do a video about sexism, and this is a video from a dude about feminism, so I didn't want to do the other one about sexism because I'm not really all that good. Right now I don't really know my shit. I haven't read my Elizabeth Cady Stanton and my fucking whatever the fuck all those other bitches are. I haven't read any of that shit. So, talking out of my ass. So, what do I think about feminism? Well, I checked out this dude's Matthew Hobson's channel, and I looked at your favorites, and I saw the video about that one feminist chick. Or I guess she's anti-feminist chick, but she seems like a feminist. And then the very, 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 very beginning of some other chick talking about. Oh god, there's this dude talking below me. Anyways. Some other chick who was like, "What happened to dudes? They're not paying." Oh God, this. You know what? I'm gonna do this. Oh, I think he's getting off the phone. I can't concentrate. I'm too high. There's somebody else talking. Some other chick is like, "There's this fucking. What's up with dudes not paying my way anymore at the fucking restaurant and shit?" And so I turned it off. I didn't watch that video. But that was a little bitch, and she wasn't even pretty, you know. So, anyways, I'll talk about that. So, what do I think about feminism? So yeah, feminism. I typed on feminism, and then you have Femin. They're my favorite feminists. They originate from Ukraine, and they're the naked feminists. They're the best kind. They get their tops off and they paint shit on their titties like "No more oligarchy." And you have to drag them off the streets, and I love it that women are using their bodies for feminism, because in the past it's always men using women's bodies, you know. It's like men paying women to get their titties out for Playboy and stuff, but now women are doing it on their own volition, and not just their titties but their pussies too, man. Getting butt naked, and I like that. You know, it's kind of like it brings you back to. Let me just talk about the nudity part really quick. It brings you back to the when you're a little kid. Remember when you were a little kid and there's boys and girls and they're naked, and like that's not sex. It's just people being people and free. That's what I like about that. And so it's kind of like women taking charge and being like, you know, we're gonna do it. We're gonna tell you what we want and we don't want, and we're gonna do it like butt naked. Because when you get people telling women to get their tops back on, it's not always other women, you know. It's sometimes, like I saw a video when there's like Free Topless Day, and it was like there are these ugly fat dudes telling the women to get their tops on, and I think I saw one contingent of society that are always wanting to get chicks to get their tops on are the dudes with no testosterone, and so maybe they're like, so they get really fat and they're dumb, and they just like they feel like, so if they can't have any, then nobody can. You know what I mean? Something like that. Like, I think maybe, or they don't like women, they're not attracted to women, or they're not attracted to women, they're not attracted to anybody, and that just makes them jealous. And so maybe that's what it is. But anyways, so but then oh yeah, feminism. So well, feminism is kind of like the exact same thing as affirmative action, only for women, and that's a good thing. Affirmative action is a good thing. You want to even out all of the races together. You don't want the rich old white dude to be in charge of everything, because when power corrupts, and absolutely power corrupts absolutely. When you get some dude, too much power and there's no feedback from the other side, then you go nuts. You go crazy. Happens time and time again. You got Nero, Caligula, popes, people just getting too. And nowadays, with the politicians and the Koch brothers just doing whatever to make money, and that's all they care about because that's all they know. And you have to have checks and balances. That's why the geniuses who made our Constitution had the executive branch and the judicial branch and the legislative branch all checking each other, and even they even built in the thing where if 2/3 of the states decide, then they can override the central government and add um, um, amendments to the Constitution. So, balance of power, balance of everything is what we want. So we want that with our races, but we also want that with our sexes, because we're eternal beings. We're not physical beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings have a physical experience. And so men and women, we're all part of the same thing. We're all these infinitely living creatures, and so we're very similar, men and women. We're just living in different machines. And so we all want the same thing, So just because you're a woman or just because you're a man shouldn't get in the way of you having a certain job or doing something. Same thing with the sexes. I mean, with the races. So, or with the economic class, everything. So, and ever since the beginning of time, the men and the women's roles have always been very regimented. The women were always having to pump out babies, so they were pregnant literally all the time. So when you're pregnant, you're in their house all the time, because there was such a high infant mortality rate in the 1600s. In England, most people wouldn't get to their 50th birthday, or actually, in the Middle Ages all over Europe, infant mortality was like 30%. People were dying all the time. So in order, and people were also going to war and killing each other all the time. And so there's constant pressure to keep the population up as high as you can, which is 180 degrees opposite of the world we live in now. Now there's constant pressure to try to keep the fucking population down so we don't kill the planet and kill everything living here, and Earth ended up looking like Mars, completely opposite, completely different. So we don't want women to be in the house all the time, safe from the world, so that they can give birth to their babies and stuck to the house, chasing kids around, making sure they don't fall down wells and in rivers and shit. I mean, and when we don't have to, we're not like in a society where we have to program men to not be attached to families so that they can go off to war and get killed. And so guys don't. It's, yeah, we're ready to have a less regimented society where people can do whatever they want. Women and men, we all want the same thing. And so we need to do what needs to be done, and that's what feminism is. That's what feminism is. It's affirmative action for women. Now, all the different kinds of feminists, I don't know anything about that. It's not my area of expertise, and I will once I read the books and stuff. But I guess, there's a lot of confusion on how we're actually going to implement that. Because there's just, and how we're gonna do it and actually making it happen, because there's so many traditionally minded people out there in the world that are resistant to change, because they're just, part of the human experience is going from animal stages to God stages, and when you're in animal stage, you're really, anything different or new is dangerous and scary and possibly fatal, like you don't want to explore too much. My little hamster was exploring and fell in the hole and died. I mean, exploration means death. Something new means death. Some kind of person you don't recognize means death, because it's like it's like the barbarians invading to kill you and shit. So yeah, there's just that contingent within society that's conservative, especially now when society's changing so much, and who just want to keep the roles the way that they were, and also laziness. Lazy people who are trying to keep the good part of the advantages, like wanting to have the cake and eat it too, keep the advantage of what they have, and only want that without having to give. Like this stupid bitch on this guy's favorites, where she's like, "What's up with men these days? You can't go out and have a guy buy you lunch no more." It's like, bitch, fucking, you're ugly. She's this horse face bitch. That's for the hot chicks, dude. Or for back in the days when men made more money, and like what? Do you want, like, when when everybody's making the same for a guy to pay for the woman. Well, how does that make sense? Like what? Are you gonna want? Do you want a society where the women make 70% more than the men, and the men have to pay to take the women out? I bet you'd want that too, because you're not thinking. That's insanity. That's in a world like that would never work. If men and women make the same amount, then men pay what they pay, and women pay what the women pay. So yeah, that whole aspect of feminism. I'm really high, by the way. Now, what else was I going to talk about? Oh wait, did you have any more questions? Do you think it was the right step for society or misguided step in an attempt to correct gender inequality? Well, what would be another guided step to correct gender inequality? You have to make laws. The first step was allowing women to vote. Laws definitely help with the what people want, the mass consciousness. We should make laws that make it so that women get paid as much as men. Okay, now I know that a lot of people, and I mean it's obvious that a lot of people in positions of power, corporate, believe that women should be getting paid less than men. That's why they're getting paid less than men. It's the decisions that they make. Now, why that they believe that, I don't know. They're not out there telling everybody, but there's some kind of agreement that these old rich white dudes have when they're talking to each other. There's something that they're saying to each other that they're agreeing on that they're not telling everybody else. And number one, that's fucking lame as fuck to make decisions not where other people don't know where your decision's coming from or why you think the way you think. So fuck you for that. But this next step for me is to just guess what these old rich white men are thinking. My guess is that they're thinking that women aren't as worthy as men. They're about, maybe if they make 80% as much as men, it's because they're 80% as useful. Now I'm really high right now because I don't have that idea right now. But when I was sober, and I actually thought about it honestly, and I would be like, well, are women as useful as men? I figured myself that in reality, women probably are about 80% as useful as men. So if you wanted to look at it, give them what they're worth, then I would be in that camp saying, okay, give them 80%. Now the reason that I believe that is because women are, women are in the habit of trying to get other people to do their jobs for them, and it's easy to do that with men because men go off and then women can, I guess they're not as strong, so they get men to like pick stuff up, or they like to get men to like fix things, even stuff that women can do, like fixing things within the house. They always try to get the man to do it, because it's like that's just the traditional way that things were in the past. Women did the finer tuned things, and men would do the more coarser stuff. The woman would bake the cake, and the man would fix the roof, and so it's just people stuck in that. But I think women fall too much into that habit, and then they try to do with each other, which is weird. Like in reality shows, it always seems like women are fighting each other, trying to get each other to do the job. Like, you're not doing the dishes. I don't know. That's just, but like women, but also so they're not as independent. But also, and when you're not as independent, I guess the conflict can arise where you're trying to get the other person to do the job. But also, women are very emotionally unbalanced. Women. I've seen women in the workplace do shit that men would never do. I worked for this woman. I was a river guide back in '93, and I did this trip, and it was a woman. She was like 45 or something. Who's the owner of the company, and I did this river trip, a 5-day river trip, and the dude I did the trip with was a lawyer. And he was the trip leader. She made him the trip leader because he was there like a couple weeks beforehand with all of his lawyer buddies, and they had this huge trip, and I guess that was the deal. Like if he came with all of his lawyer buddies, then he get to pretend he was a river guide. And so we did the trip, and it was fun and everything, but he wasn't a river guide. Once we were done with the trip, he went back to Denver, and anyways, she's like, fucking goes apeshit on me, screaming and yelling at me at the top of her fucking lungs, telling me that like I wasn't taking care of the food on my boat right because it was all a mess, a total mess inside there, and it wasn't cleaned or organized. And I was like, that's his boat. Like I never went on his boat. Why did you get mad at me if something at his boat did it? And then she didn't even apologize, and then she starts lecturing me about how I need to be clean and how I need to be this. And it's like, wait, but I always did everything right. Like like that's just crazy. And so, anyways, women do that shit. They like they they freak, and then I think they suffer from cognitive dissonance more than men. It seems like her, like instead of apologizing, she just goes into blaming, trying to use that as a lesson to lecture me. Anyways, I should have explained that to her then, but women, they don't have as much experience thinking for themselves, and when you can't think for yourself, that's basically the same thing as making you. It makes basically is the same thing as being stupid. You know, being Borg mentality and being an individual thinker is like being stupid or smart. So basically, I think men historically are smarter than women because they're more because they can think for themselves and because they can think out of the box, and they have more creativity, you know, and creativity and thinking out of the box and being original is intelligence. And if you are going to think stuff the way that everybody else thinks, then you're just basically retarding your intelligence. And women, because they have always been more sheltered and more kind of traditional, and they follow traditions more. And especially the unwritten rules. See, women follow unwritten rules, men follow written rules. And when you're going to follow unwritten rules, you're a lot more susceptible to going insane, to suffering from cognitive dissonance. But I mean, you know, and I guess there's strengths to it too. You're more intuitive and stuff. But what I mean by that is like rules within the home where women reign. Those are all traditions. You don't write rules for that kind of stuff. The men's workplace is like the law, you know, and this kind of stuff where you actually have to have laws written down, black and white, and so men and women have traditionally lived in these two separate worlds, and so when women are used to kind of being able to kind of put their own personal touch on things and, you know, break rules and tell little white lies and this kind of thing and get away with it, but you can't do that in the workplace. You have to be more rich, you know, more black and white, more predictable, and less, you know, emotional. Like they bring their, you know, like in the home, you're more emotion, but then you can't take that in the workplace because then they'll just make people turn against you. And I think that has always been the problem because in the past, women, you know, are the different people in the different segments of society were very regimented: the rich and the poor, and the men and the women. And in the past, women weren't allowed in any position of decision making, and I don't, you know, and it's this big mystery as to why. Nobody ever says why, you know, and people don't even try to think why, you know. But like in the ancient Greeks, you know, women were known. I saw this woman, an English woman, did a documentary on ancient Greece, and she said that in ancient Greece, women were viewed to be stupid and evil. You know, it's like, and they weren't allowed to be in the illusion mysteries, you know, where they'd eat the mushrooms and trip out, or they weren't allowed into the huts where they'd make the political decisions. And it's like, well, why is that? Like, how? And the only thing that I can think of is maybe it's because, you know, women and men, because they live in these two separate worlds, women in the house, men out there in the world where and the men have these laws and these rules, and women, so then the women get out in the law, you know, the big cabin where they're trying to make the political decisions, and they're like getting all emotional and like screaming and then interrupting each other, and then I guess saying, I don't know, it's just weird, you know. It's, you don't know why, but women were not allowed. But I mean, but I don't think women wanted to, you know. I mean, the lives that men and women lived in the past were just so different. Men would go out and were kind of disposable physically, you know. They would go off to war and they'd all die, and you're supposed to expected to do that, you know, jump on the grenade for everybody else, and it was to protect the women first. You know, you'd always protect the women because they're the ones who could have the babies. You know, one man can impregnate 100 women. You know, like if you could only get certain people to escape from the invading tribe, you'd want to have 100 women escape with one man, because that one man could impregnate all 100 women, and then you could have a population really quickly. If it's one woman with 100 men, you're fucked, because you only have one baby at the end of the year. And so you have to protect the women. But so women, so women, I guess, get in the habit of being after that, just being selfish and being not. They're just living in the house, anyways. So that's just the all that subconscious stuff. It's still alive now, and people have to figure out a way to make it so that the opportunities are the same for both sexes. Now, I think a lot of beautiful things are happening, creating great opportunities. Like when women want to do like exploration trips and stuff, they get support really easily. You know, people like to see women do that and catch up with men. It's a kind of affirmative action. Women also starting businesses and this kind of stuff. There's a lot of support, and so. So back to what I originally said, you know, women I would imagine overall would be like 20% as, or 80% as useful as a man. You know, also because they, you know, they're not as regimented, so they would show up later. They'd turn and stuff in later, I guess. I'm not. See, I don't. I'm only guessing. I'm not in the corporate world, but that's not my experience from in school. In school, women always showed up on time, but. You know, I knew a guy who was a supervisor, and he said his women were always, you know, not as reliable, excuses and stuff. But see, they have to take care of the babies in the past, and so when you have to take care of babies, that's an extra burden, and so that's less ability you're going to have, and you know, time to be professional. So. Anyways, even if you think of women being 80% as useful as men, and that was only when I was thinking about it at that time. I don't even know if I believe that. I don't believe that now. Maybe it's because I'm high, but I do sometimes believe that. But even if you do believe it, like if you believe that black people are not as good at workers as whites, you would still want to give them the opportunity, you know, like still pay the women as much, even if you don't think that they're worth as much, because when women are paid as much, that means that that puts the pressure on them to try to live up to the bar. You know, if you raise the bar for them, they'll live up to it. You know, you can't like if a woman says, you know, you're only paying me, like you're paying me less, even though I do. Well, honestly, that's not what I was gonna say. Like if a woman gets paid as much as a man, and then the man says, shut up, you know, Matilda, you fucking always bitching and moaning just like fucking women always do, and you get paid just as much as us, you should be getting paid less. What? Fuck you, I don't bitch and moan less. And then I guess you could talk about that, you know. But the first, you know, it's like you have to, I guess I put that really bad, really poorly, I'm really high. You have to, if you pay women just as much as men, then they're not going to have an excuse to not be as good of a worker. Okay? They're going to try to do as well, and they are going to do as well. Same thing with everybody. So with all the political stuff, you know, like if there's a woman running for president, I would vote for somebody, for a woman, just more than a man, just because she's a woman. And same thing for the races. That's why I voted for Barack Obama. And that's what probably the card that they're going to play, the Democrats with Hillary Clinton. But I'd vote for the man. I mean, I'd vote for the third party dude candidate the most, who has the biggest chance of winning, before I would vote for her, because I put that above the sex. You know, the sex, voting for somebody just because their sex or black, I don't think that trumps the important stuff for most people. But yeah, it's interesting, you know, trying to figure out a way to have a level playing field for both men and women. As far as like the home life, trying to make it level the playing field for that, I think that you know, there's some advantages that men are always going to have over women, and in terms of that, women cannot have babies after they're a certain age. Maybe we'll have medical advancements, but if once a woman gets to be about 40 and she's never had a kid, you know, she needs to have a kid. They get the menopause. Men can have kids all the way up until they're dead, you know, until they're 100. So, and, you know, I mean, that's something that you could consider in the real world, like, you know, like Like you would want to support women trying to do adventure type of stuff, young women more than young men, because the woman's not going to be able to do it when she's older, because she's probably going to want to have a kid. I don't know. And then support the old men more than the old women who've already had the kids, and that kind of stuff. But, but, I guess that's a different subject, family life and relationships. But see, you have to look at the advantages that both sexes have now and in the past. In the past, the advantage that women had, they had easier lives. They didn't have to worry about getting killed in a war. They could hang out and chill in the house. What fun! Play with the little kids. I mean, what fun is that? I'd love to raise a little kid. Yay! But the advantage that the men have is they get to adventure. Okay, so I guess it's a level playing field. So nowadays, in the modern time, it should all be the same. So if women should be able to have all the rights as the men, then men should be able to have the opportunity to be house husband. Like a woman should be interested in a man, who wants to raise kids and has the time to raise kids but doesn't make money. It should go both ways, and you don't really hear about that, and that's not really, I guess, something that's possible. Like for me, I don't see that as being possible for me. And that's not my decision. I mean, and I'm sure any guy would love an opportunity to marry some super hot, rich girl who pays for everything and gives you a baby, and you can raise a baby, hang out in the house all day. That's awesome. That's what women get, though. That's what women get now. That's what women expect now. So it's like, which sex is making off with all the gold again? So, but I mean, I guess, like personally for me, I already, like the reason I don't want a family is because I don't have the money, but it's also the time. I don't have the time. So money's really not a factor, but if I did decide that I wanted to have a girlfriend right now, I wouldn't try. It's not worth it to me. I see women as being too difficult. Because like I don't make much money. I have a lot of spare time. But a guy who doesn't make much money and has a lot of spare time is not a catch for a woman. And so, I'm not going to go for it. It's just not worth it to me. But if I did make a lot of money, well, I also wouldn't want a girlfriend because I like having all of my spare time. But I don't know. I mean, if women wanted to be, if you get into a society where you're having population problems, like in Japan or America, if we didn't have the immigrants, or Italy, I guess is like this, and then the women all of a sudden start scratching their head because they're not getting, like, they can't find men to, like, impregnate them and give them babies, then maybe they should change up what their expectations are. And instead of wanting a man to pay for them so that they can sit in the house and have their babies, maybe what they should do is get a job, make a lot of money, and then find some dude who lives with his mom or something. I don't know, some dude on the street, whoever, some nice guy with a lot of spare time, to get him in her house and impregnate her, and then raise her kids in her house while she makes the money. That's a way out. If women start doing that, I mean, I don't know what women's ideas are. There was that one girl on this guy's favorites list who was like bitching and moaning, but the only thing I heard of was because she's bitching because guys aren't buying her shit. Guys aren't taking her out to eat. Now that's the whole thing about, now looks. Okay, let's talk about that, because traditionally women go for guys with money and guys go for women with looks. So maybe we should reverse it and have women should go for guys with money, and then guys should go with women. Women should go with guys with looks, and guys should go with women with money. That's kind of gross for guys, because now you're thinking about some old, nasty old lady. But what about like but obviously any guy would go for some young hot girl who's got a lot of money. But then that would mean that you'd have to be really hot. Well, that's easy for a guy. I mean, guys like to work out, and being hot means being fit. And women kind of don't exercise. See, that's another problem with population problems and men not being into women. Women don't stay fit. You have to, like, if you go to the gym, all the, like, 90% of the people in any gym you go to, they're all guys. Men are always the ones, when you're out there looking at the people riding the bike or running down the road, it's all guys. It's like women are kind of like, where are they? They must be inside watching TV or something, but it's not that hard. It's pretty easy to be a hot chick. You just exercise. Even an ugly ass chick can be the hottest chick ever if she exercises. So, but I guess women traditionally haven't exercised. Like, that's not what makes a woman attractive. Being like, in the past, even being plump, I guess, would make a woman attractive. I don't know, but just being nice, I don't know. But guys like chicks who were hot with nice bodies. And, well, in the past, I guess women didn't have to have the nicest bodies because they were having their house job and you don't have to exercise that much, just standing around. And men are out there running and lifting heavy stuff at the war and plowing and things. But women plow too, so I don't know. Anyways, but that's just how the cookie crumbles. If a woman is hot, she gets shit paid for. If a guy, I guess it would happen with a guy too. Anyway, it's hard. You see, it's hard. It's hard to contemplate. I should probably have done this when I was sober. Okay, so gender inequality. So one good way to fix inequality is to imagine a future. You want to imagine the future you want, and then you would just paint it how it is, and then you say, okay, what do we have to do to get it there? So, yeah, future. I like a future where, yeah, it's more equality, and men and women are more the same, and you could, like, talk to women. But women are traditionally, I think, more traditional, so they can't think out of the box. So, like, you can't, if there's some new way, you can't, like, be friends with a girl, because then she thinks that it's more traditional. Now you just want to be her boyfriend or something. And but in the future, see, when people die and then newer generations come, they can think completely differently. They're not programmed, and so the future could be really different. I see the future where women are just as active as men, and so then physically they change. Physically they become more similar to men, and a little bit more. But anyways, I probably should have watched more videos about feminism because I don't have anything else to say. Oh, but women, see, one thing that women, okay, let's talk about the negative aspects of feminism. See, one thing that women do that shoot themselves in the foot is they try to, try to make men feel guilty and men feel bad, like all this stuff about, all the kings in the past being men and using women as pawns, and like with the Borgias, I mean the Medici's using their women as like marrying their princesses off to other families and then divorcing them when the families lost their alliances and stuff, and just tearing women away from their families, for political purposes because the people in charge were men, and then getting angry with men and thinking men are like, disrespectful of women and all this kind of stuff now. Yeah, just you have to be balanced, I mean, just don't forget you can piss men off. Men have less of a problem saying women are stupid and like knocking women down in a public way. That's what sexism is all about. Men can totally get away with doing it and totally love doing it. Women don't do that against men, So then women get like bottled up and they get really angry and then they blow, and then they freak and they're like, fuck you, la, la, la. So it's better for women to talk trash about men more frequently, but in less intensely, with more humor and more of that, the way that men do, like talk trash about women. I mean, women should talk trash about men the same way that men talk trash about women. Like I've talked plenty of trash about women, saying women basically are stupid, and it's true. I mean, you can't, like my experience is like when you travel around and you talk to somebody, like, just like random memories. I was in a bar in Australia and I was hanging out and I met some dude and he just started talking about the war with the Israelites against the Palestinians and all kinds of shit. Just talking. And then, some hot springs, I saw some guy from LA. I was with my brother, and he was talking. I mean, you meet so many guys who just talk, and they have so many ideas, and they talk, and you're like, wow, and then you can listen to them, and then you can talk back. But with women, you never meet women who do that. And if you ever meet a woman, and then if you ever talk to a woman, they kind of like look at you like you're trying to impress them or something. And women need to like focus on talking about deep things, like political stuff, religious stuff, not just pop culture stuff, not shallow stuff, not kiddie stuff, and talk about that stuff deep and like as a habit to strangers, because women kind of I think they blame men too much for that. They're like, oh, men don't let women talk about, but no, women don't let women talk about politics. Women don't let themselves talk about politics. I was at a hostel in Skopje, Macedonia, and we were having some political discussion about gypsies and stuff. And there was some American guy and an American girl. And, it got a little bit, the conversation got to a point where there was a little bit of disagreement, and then all of a sudden the girl goes, fuck you then, you motherfucker, or whatever, and storms out. It caused a scene. And nobody said anything. And then I was like, you just stated what you thought. And like, but women do that. It's like you can't, if you disagree with a woman, that's like fighting. No, it's like fighting words or something. But if a woman disagrees with you, it's like she's yelling at you and accusing you of like being an idiot or something like that. And I don't know. It's women. It's kind of like that movie Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler and Jack Nicholson, where I can't remember what it's called, but like supposedly it was a bad movie. Supposedly Adam Sandler was like Mr. Nice Guy, and then he'd be too nice, and all of a sudden he'd yell. It's like that. Australians are kind of like that. They try to pretend like they're polite, and then they just fucking freak on you. That's kind of like what women are, and I think people get like that because they don't express. They can't talk about any and everything, because they judge themselves too much, and they take shit too seriously, like if you talk about, you can't get women. I mean, if a woman talks about like masturbation, it's like because it's her masturbation channel and she's Mrs. Masturbation. If a dude talks about masturbation, which I've talked about masturbation in a bunch of videos, it's just something he's talking about. It's like, what, big deal. Or if a woman's like, you're gonna judge me, fuck you, I don't care, fuck what somebody thinks about me. If a guy has that attitude, he's just like, oh yeah, whatever, I don't care. It's like, I don't know, women like are afraid. They're like scared. And then they fight back the fear, like with this false bravado or something. And I don't know, it's kind of has to do with, I think it's just part of the process of women coming out in the world, because traditionally women were in the home, so what they were exposed to wasn't as wide range. Men are out there in the world traveling through other countries, hacking people's heads off at war. They're exposed to everything. So they're not going to get like scared or freaked out by something that's different from them. And so that's basically, I think, to get women on the same level as men, is they need to open their minds and be able to like be exposed to like a weird person without them giving a face. Weird person or something like that. Like you just got to be less judgmental. It's just kind of hard to describe, but we still live in that world, though. You know what I mean? Like with the whole traditions in the past with the men and women regimen in society, we still live in that world. Like my wife, she was from Chile, which is like a third world country, and she got sexually molested when she was 4 by like a cousin, or I don't know who it was. No, it wasn't a cousin. It was like a helper of the house or something, babysitter. And then when she was a secretary, her boss, the 60-year-old guy, locked her in the bathroom, wouldn't let her get out until he sucked her dick, or she sucked his dick, and I think she refused, and he fought her way out or something like that. And then, she got a job when I was with her. She got a job 5 days a week, but then after she got the job, he changed it to 6 days a week, and it's kind of weird stuff. And her opportunities just were not there. She even went to college for secretary, but secretaries get barely a living, and then they get sexually assaulted, and they get their bosses changing the rules on them after they get hired and this kind of stuff. And so her only way out was to marry her way out. That's a lot of women's only way out, and that's just how it is. And so if you make it so that that's not their only way out, and so that she could get a job, for example, open up her own business without people like railroading her all the time, like men trying to get in the way of her. And I know that happens, and I know women complain about that. I've never experienced it. I don't even understand the mentality behind that. Actually, I think I can understand the mentality. If a woman does well, if a man sees a woman's doing well, then that kind of exposes him and makes him feel vulnerable, because now he's lost his only bargaining chip. Because the only bargaining chip that the man had before was the money. Now the woman has the sex and the money. So he's left with nothing. But that's not how it works, because men are half of society. And so even if all the women make more money than all the men, they're still going to need the men to get them pregnant. And they're still going to have that desire to have that intimate interaction with the opposite sex. They're still going to want men. The role, it'll end up working well for men, because it'll just make it so that men will be easier for man to marry some woman and just to be a house husband, But I think men get freaked out by that. And they're like, and they feel less adequate. Yeah. But it's hard to describe, and it's hard to contemplate. I'm just trying to empathize with how a man could feel jealous of a woman because she makes more money. But the only thing that I can relate to about that is like maybe if a woman makes a bunch of money and then she flaunts it, because women like to kind of they're more pompous in terms of displaying wealth. It seems like, I don't know. I'm talking out of my ass. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, man. But men are like that. I do know that men can be like that, traditionally minded. That's just the bad side of the coin of traditionally minded men. You get the bad traditionally minded women who want the men to pay for everything, and then you get the bad traditionally minded men who want to be able to pay for anything because they think if they can, then they're not going to have any more bargaining chip. But that's like cognitive dissonance right there. You could give all the money to all the women and take all the power away from all the men, and men are still going to have power. And women have always had power in society. They just had it in a. They only had. They had to. They didn't have as much, I guess, individual power. They had to. It was more. Kind of like. Women are more like Borg. They're more of a group of one mind, and men are more independent. And so there's gives and takes to all of that, but that is some deep shit, and that's something that I would have to do a video about when I'm sober and after I've read a lot of books about it and thought a lot about it. So that's as good as I can do now. Peace out.